Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula 1, but from photographers' points of view. Race 18, the United States Grand Prix from Austin, Texas. As I'm sure you can tell, this is not Texas. I'm here getting a couple of days relaxation in gorgeous Cancun. But in this video, I'd like to go through what happened in the USA Grand Prix. I'm going to look at 5 key points from the race weekend, and along the way, show you some of my favourite photographs. Point number 1, Max Verstappen wins his 50th race. Max did the double this weekend, winning both the sprint and feature races. The feature race was Max's 50th Grand Prix victory. A story that goes all the way back to 2016 when he won his first race in Barcelona. 50 race wins for a driver who is 26 years old is incredible. Imagine the total he could get if he raced until Fernando Alonso's age. He didn't make this race victory easy for himself, only managing to qualify in 6th place on Friday, mainly because he exceeded track limits on a lap that would have been good enough for pole position. That meant he had to battle through the grid. But the chasing pack was a lot closer in this race. Hamilton fought him hard in the sprint race, and Lando Norris led the feature race for a considerable length of time. Had there been a few more laps, there's a good chance that Lewis could have caught Max right at the end. But if there's one thing we know about Verstappen, that he doesn't need to start on pole position to win a race. Unfortunately, when Max went up on the podium to claim his trophy, a vocal part of the crowd started booing him very, very loudly. And it was really sad to see. Even if you don't like a particular sportsman or he's not from your favourite team, you have to appreciate all of the hard work, all of the dedication, and all of the skill that's got them into the position that they're in. Not that Max needs me to defend him in any way. Booing Max is probably just going to make him more determined and more ruthless in the races to come. He even said in the press conference afterwards, "It doesn't really matter because I'm the one going home with the silverware." But it is very sad that he got this sort of reception after driving a phenomenal race and reaching a huge landmark. He's 1 win away from equaling Alan Prost's record of 51 victories and 3 away from equaling Sebastian Vettel's 53. Point number 2, Texas is full-on Americana. This is one of the races that all the drivers absolutely love, and it's one that they really embrace the local culture. On Friday, we had the 2 Ferrari drivers getting dressed up as cowboys, complete with fake moustaches, where they played a game of cornhole against each other and tried their hands at lassoing. Pretty much all of the drivers got into the cowboy spirit. Here's Yuki Tsunoda arriving with a hat that's almost the same size as him. Valtteri Bottas looked right at home as a cowboy. Daniel Ricciardo made a massive statement with his facial hair on his return to Grand Prix racing. He's missed the last 5 races due to an injury sustained at Zandvoort. Not only did the drivers dress up, but we also had a lot of custom helmets. From Charles Leclerc's really cool green helmet, Carlos Sainz had an American flag-inspired helmet, Zoe had this very cool orange variation on his standard helmet design, and Max is sporting the helmet that he was presented with at the last race for winning his 3rd championship. Lando had this very cool sticker helmet celebrating his 100th race. It's got stickers representing many of the Grand Prix that he's raced in. In the paddock, there's some pretty cool things representing different parts of American history, such as this beautiful stagecoach, and there was a statue of an astronaut, which was quite cool until we realized that Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen had come along to watch the Grand Prix. He's going to be part of the Artemis II crew, and they've got a mission planned for November 2024, where they're going to be flying around the moon, preparing for Artemis III, which will hopefully be the first moon landing since Apollo 17 in 1972. But he wasn't the only celebrity in attendance. Drew Barrymore came to lend her support to the F1 Academy. This is the FIA's all-female racing championship. It's the successor to the W Series, and Austin was the final round of their season. The championship was won by Marta Garcia. Next year, the F1 Academy drivers are going to be racing on the same weekend as Formula 1 in 7 races. Here are a few other celebrities that I managed to capture. The big surprise for me was seeing Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. He was there as a guest of Mercedes. But it's not just celebrities that make this race amazing. There's so many fans that come out, dress up, to have an absolute blast watching Formula 1. Although this was one of the best attended races of the year, the organisers were expecting it to break the record for the most attended race in the history of Formula 1. It was projected that there'll be more than 520,000 people attending over the course of the race weekend. The actual attendance was nearly 100,000 less than that, 432,000. A lot of people were put off by the very, very high ticket prices. I did an A to Z guide about the USA Grand Prix, which you can see in the description below. And in that, I go into the ticketing prices. There are so many people who want to attend Formula One, but are put off by the very, very high prices. Point 3, the strugglers bounce back. There are 3 drivers that have been largely criticised in the media over the past few races. All of them had pretty good race weekends. Lance Stroll has come in for a lot of criticism for his perceived lack of pace and racecraft compared to his teammate Fernando Alonso. Things didn't look good for him at the start of the race weekend with his car in pieces during the only practice session. But he drove with an awful lot of determination, starting the race from the pits, which means he was at the back of the grid, coming through to finish in 7th place. It was a really commendable drive. Then Sergio Perez managed to get 4th place in the feature race. He's had a very difficult last few races, and even here struggled in qualifying, but he managed to pull things together in the race, as he so often does. This result is a huge step towards him claiming 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship. Then Logan Sargent, the only driver who hasn't got a seat confirmed for next year, managed to score his first championship points. Things were looking pretty bleak during the sprint race where he came last, but he managed to get through it without crashing. And from there he produced a really solid race, and taking 10th place, the final point scoring position. And now that he's scored his first championship point, hopefully he can push on from that, and in the last few races of the year can convince Williams that he deserves his place. From all accounts, the team are giving him enough time and support for him to succeed. Point 4, upgrades. It's very unusual in Formula One to see teams bringing upgrades this late in the season. Usually, by now, everyone will have switched focus to next year's cars. But because the rules are so similar between this year and next year, development that's done now can be used next year. Both Mercedes and Haas brought massive upgrades to this race. It was a very bold race to do that because a sprint weekend doesn't give you much time to analyse the data. And with Haas, we saw that they looked very, very strong in free practice 1. But then when the serious business of qualifying started, they just fell away completely. They just didn't have enough time to fully understand their new car. I'm sure we're going to see them do a lot better in Mexico. It's quite a radical departure from where they were before. They've gone from a Ferrari-style aerodynamic philosophy to more of a Red Bull-inspired concept. Mercedes brought a whole lot of new changes to their side pods, and there's some quite unusual shapes developing on the side of the car. It'll be fascinating to know what kind of benefits these bizarre indents on the side pods bring. Whereas Haas appeared to struggle to understand their new concept, Mercedes looked brilliant from the off. Mercedes now look really, really strong. And with this car, they could possibly even challenge Red Bull in a straight out-and-out fight. Lewis had a very strong sprint race, and he was ever so close to catching Max in the feature race. But even if he had managed to catch and pass the Dutchman, it still would have ended in heartbreak because point number 5, disqualifications. When I got back to my Airbnb, I discovered that both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc had been disqualified. Underneath the car, there is a plank of wood, and it's placed there to test the ride height of the car. If the car rides too low, the wood will scrape along the tarmac and it will wear away. If it wears away 1 centimeter or more, the car is disqualified. It's an amazing sight to see this incredibly complex carbon fiber car with a plank of ordinary wood strapped underneath it. But after the race, the FIA randomly tests 4 cars, and in this case they found 2 that were riding too low. We hardly ever see a disqualification in Formula One. The last one was 2021. Sebastian Vettel didn't have enough fuel in his car in the Hungarian race, and it's been a very long time since we've seen someone disqualified for ride height infringements. Part of the reason for this was the track is very, very bumpy. It gets bumpier every year, but also the teams didn't have very much time to set up the cars. They only had 1 practice session, so they didn't have enough time to properly calibrate where the ride height should be to be able to pass this test. What did emerge, which is quite unusual, is that the FIA only tests 4 cars at random. And even in this case, where 2 drivers of the 4, 50%, were found to be in breach of the regulations, that didn't trigger an extended test. You would think that if 2 cars had failed, there's a very good chance that more in the field are guilty. The FIA do have a limited amount of resources, which makes this sort of testing quite difficult, but you do get the feeling that they should have tested more cars, especially the teammates of the cars that failed. Who knows, Logan Sargent could have been on the podium. Thank you so much for watching this look back at the USA Grand Prix with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it. It's the first part of a triple header. Next stop, Mexico City. Until then, goodbye.